The great Thaleri court was glowing with soft blue light, and the air smelled of rare flowers from the homeworld. Nobles from every corner of the empire stood in perfect silence, waiting for the princess to speak. She sat on the high seat, wearing silver robes that shimmered with stars. She looked calm, cold, and distant. Her long dark hair was tied with thin metal cords, and her golden eyes studied the envoys in front of her. The noble suitor stood proudly. He was tall, with perfect posture and a long family name, Myhorm. His armor was ceremonial, not built for war, but for beauty. He bowed and spoke with grace. "Your Highness, I am honored to ask for your hand. With our union, our empires will never know war again." The court held its breath. This alliance had taken years to arrange. Every star general, diplomat, and elder had agreed that this marriage would bring peace, but the princess did not move. After a long pause, she stood. Her voice was clear. "I reject this proposal." A sound moved through the room like a storm. Advisors stepped forward quickly, whispering to each other in panic. One of them, a tall elder with green skin and 3 eyes, leaned toward her. "Your Highness," he said gently, "this union is necessary. Your mother, the High Queen, agreed to this." The princess turned her gaze toward him. "I did not." The noble suitor looked embarrassed but tried to smile. "Is this a test, my lady?" "No," she replied. "I will not marry for peace if there is no peace in my heart." The court broke into whispers. Many thought the princess had lost her mind. Others believed she had another reason. But no one could guess what it was. The suitor was sent away with honor, and the ceremony ended early. Later that evening, in the royal hall, new guests arrived. They were part of a delegation from Earth, the human planet. Humans were still new to the galactic stage. They had no noble houses or powerful fleets, but they were curious, bold, and often unpredictable. The human envoy group entered with respect. Their leader was a woman named Karen, dressed in clean diplomatic clothing. Beside her walked a quiet man named Ethan. He looked plain compared to the others' average height, calm face, and simple eyes that seemed to notice everything. No one paid much attention to him until the moment the princess looked up. She had just taken a glass from a servant when her eyes met his across the room. And then she froze. The glass slipped from her hand and hit the floor. It didn't shatter. The sound echoed through the hall. Every noble turned to look at her. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. For the first time, the princess, known for her sharp words and strong will, was completely silent. Ethan looked confused. He shifted slightly, wondering if he had done something wrong. The other humans also looked at each other, unsure what had just happened. "Anne." Alien Commander leaned in and whispered, "Who is that human?" Another answered, "No idea, just an observer." But the princess finally spoke. One quiet word, "Bring him." No one questioned her. The guards moved at once, not with weapons. Drawn, but with careful steps. They walked toward Ethan and asked him to come forward. Ethan nodded. He had no reason to refuse. He followed them across the room, walking under 100 alien eyes that all followed his every step. When he stood before her, he bowed slightly. "Your Highness," he said. She stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. "Do you remember me?" she asked quietly, so only he could hear. Ethan blinked. "I'm not sure," he said honestly. "Have we met before?" Her eyes searched his face. She said nothing more. The court waited, confused and growing nervous, but the princess only turned to her advisor and said, "No more meetings tonight. Clear the room." They hesitated, "Your Highness." "Now," she ordered. The court was dismissed, and the room slowly emptied, leaving only her and Ethan in the wide, glowing hall. The princess finally sat down again and looked up at him. "Many years ago," she said softly, "my ship was attacked during a journey. I was a child, hidden under broken metal. There was fire, there was fear, and someone pulled me out. Someone risked their life to save mine. I never saw their face." Ethan frowned. Something about her words made his heart race. He remembered something similar. A mission. Chaos. A small alien girl crying under debris. You think that was me? He asked. She didn't answer with words. She just nodded. They sat in silence in the shadows, far from the rest of the galaxy. Two souls from different worlds remembered a moment that neither had spoken of in years. For the first time in her life, the Princess of Thaleri didn't speak out of duty, pride, or law. She simply remembered, and she looked at the human who had once saved her. And for the first time, her cold heart felt something she didn't understand. The royal chamber was quiet, filled only with the hum of soft lights and distant echoes of guards standing outside. Ethan sat across from the princess, unsure of what to say. He had been in many strange places since joining Earth's diplomatic branch, but nothing like this, sitting face to face with an alien princess who might remember him from years ago. That was new. The princess still hadn't blinked. Her gaze stayed fixed on Ethan, as if trying to find something hidden deep inside. His face. You saved me, she said again, but softer this time. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. I really don't know, Your Highness. I've helped people during evacuations, yes, but I never stayed long. We weren't even told names. We just got people out. I was one of those people, she whispered. I remember your hands. They were shaking, but strong. You covered my face with your coat so I wouldn't breathe the smoke. Ethan's eyes widened a little. A small piece of memory returned. A child under a beam, smoke everywhere, crying. He had pulled her out. A tiny hand holding tightly to his jacket. You had a small pendant, Ethan said suddenly. Silver with a moon carved on it. The princess's eyes shimmered. She reached into her sleeve and pulled out the same pendant. I still wear it. Silence filled the room again. This time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like two timelines were slowly coming together. Outside the hall, guards and nobles whispered in panic. The advisors didn't know what was happening inside. They'd never seen the princess act like this. One of them rushed to the High Queen's chambers to report. Inside, the princess finally stood. You must be tired, she said. A little. Ethan replied, but I'm okay. Rest here, she said. You are not a prisoner, but you are important to me now. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Important? Very? Without another word, she left the room. Ethan was left sitting alone, still trying to understand what was going on. Meanwhile, the news of the princess's sudden interest in a human began to spread. The rejected noble, Lord Selvik, was furious. He called it an insult. Some of the Thalari generals agreed. They believed the princess was under some kind of spell or emotional confusion. Others, though, were curious. Why would the princess famous for her pride speak gently to a human? The next day, a full council was held. Alien. Representatives from across the empire gathered in the throne room. The High Queen sat at the center, calm and unreadable. Beside her stood the princess, her face serious. Ethan was asked to attend. He entered the chamber with his head held high, even though he felt nervous. He could feel every pair of eyes watching. Him. This is the human in question, the High Queen said, her voice echoing. Ethan stepped forward. My name is Ethan Ryder, Envoy of Earth. A few voices chuckled. Earth had no power here, but the princess raised her hand and the chamber fell quiet. This man saved my life years ago, she announced. When others ran, he stayed. Others ignored, he helped. He was not a soldier, was not rich, but he was kind, brave. The queen raised her eyebrow. And now you wish to marry him? Gasps filled the room. Ethan nearly coughed. Wait, what? The princess didn't? Blink. Yes. Chaos broke out. Nobles shouted. One slammed his cane to the ground. Others protested. A princess marrying a human? Unthinkable. Even the human delegation looked shocked. Karen, the Earth Envoy leader, stared at Ethan in disbelief. The queen lifted her hand and silence returned. This is not how we do things, she said. You rejected a noble alliance that took years to build. Because I did not love it, the princess replied. I felt nothing for him, but I feel something now. And it started years ago when I was just a frightened child. The queen sighed. She looked at Ethan. Do you even want this? Ethan scratched his head. I didn't come here to marry anyone. Just wanted to represent my people, but I don't want to cause problems either. The queen thought deeply. If the princess insists, then there must be a test. Not a test of war, but of honor and heart. A wise elder stepped forward. Yes, if he passes, the marriage can be accepted. If not, he returns to Earth and we move on. Agreed. Name the test. The elder smiled. You'll send him to the moon of Vecra. It's quiet but wild. Let him survive 3 days there alone. If he returns with a token from the mountain, he is worthy. Ethan's jaw dropped slightly. 3 days alone? The princess turned to him. You don't have to do it. I won't force you. He looked at her, then at the room full of aliens waiting to laugh at him. He nodded. I'll do it. Court murmured again, but this time there was something different. A hint of respect. The queen stood. Then it is decided. Human shall be tested. As the chamber emptied, the princess walked beside Ethan. Are you sure? She asked. No, he said honestly. Maybe it's time I do something crazy for once. She smiled for the first time, and in that moment it wasn't about royalty, politics, or past memories. It was just two people, standing on the edge of something no one else could understand. The transport ship landed on the wild moon of Vecra with a soft hum. Winds blew across dry stone fields, and the sky was filled with pale yellow clouds. Nothing lived here in peace. It was not a place for comfort. It was a place to test strength, patience, and heart. Ethan stepped off the ramp with only a small pack. One water unit, a basic scanner, and a map made from alien symbols. The mountain stood far in the distance, sharp, tall, and cold-looking. That was his goal. Survive 3 days alone and bring back a crystal from the peak. No weapons, no helpers. Just himself. Behind him. The guards closed the ship door and left. He was alone. He looked at the mountain, then at the rocky path ahead. All right, he whispered. Let's find out if I'm really that brave. Meanwhile, back at the Thaleri palace, the princess stood near a tall window, watching the stars. Her hands were tight around the silver pendant. She didn't speak. Her advisors tried to tell her it was a mistake. Some warned her that the human would never return. Others said it would be better if he didn't, but she ignored them all. He saved me once, she whispered to herself. He'll do it again. On Vecra, Ethan began walking. The ground was rough, sharp, and dry. Every step sent dust into the air. He kept his scanner close, checking for heat or danger. Strange sounds echoed across the hills, distant animal howls, rock slides, and deep growls from things hidden in the shadows by nightfall. He reached a narrow canyon and built a small shelter with fabric from his pack. He tried to rest, but sleep didn't come. Strange lights moved above him in the clouds. His body ached, and the cold wind cut through his jacket. But he didn't stop. On the second day, he reached a cliff. It was too steep to climb without ropes, so he found a narrow path that spiraled up. It was slow and dangerous. A wrong step could send him falling, halfway up. A storm hit. Rain poured down like acid, not strong enough to burn skin, but enough to sting his eyes. The wind screamed and rocks tumbled beside him. Ethan held onto the edge of the cliff with everything he had. His fingers slipped once, but he caught himself. He yelled into the wind, not in fear, but in frustration. You think this is enough to stop me? I've seen worse traffic back on Earth. He kept climbing. When he finally reached the top, he collapsed under a small overhang. He breathed hard, chest rising and falling. His hands were bleeding. Water was almost gone, but he looked up and saw the peak still ahead, just one more day on the final morning. Legs shook with every step. His scanner had died, and the cold had made his fingers numb. The top of the mountain was near. He could see it glowing faintly in the fog. A narrow path curved along the mountain's spine. Rocks shifted under his boots. The wind whispered. Voices he couldn't understand? Or maybe he was just tired. He was too tired to think. But then he saw it. A small crystal, sharp and glowing, buried in a nest of stones at the very top. He reached out slowly, hands trembling, and then a sound. Something. Big Dot, a beast, tall and dark with glowing red eyes, rose from behind the rocks. It was covered in fur and armor-like scales. It had long arms and claws that scraped the stone. Ethan froze. The creature snarled. It was a test, a final one. Ethan didn't run. He knew he couldn't win a fight. But he remembered something the princess had once said in the chamber. Sometimes, the strongest weapon is calm. He stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on the beast. His hands stayed open, showing no threat. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. "Just need that crystal. Nothing more." The beast growled louder, took a step forward. Closer, Ethan knelt and placed a piece of food from his pack on the rock. A gift. Then he bowed his head. The wind stopped for a moment. The beast sniffed. The food growled again and stepped aside. Ethan reached out and took the crystal. He didn't run. He walked away calmly, never turning his back. 3 hours later, a signal from the scanner lit up. The pickup ship was near, and Ethan was still alive. When the transport arrived at the palace, everyone gathered in silence. The queen, the nobles. The generals all waited to see if the human had survived. The ramp opened, and Ethan walked out. It's covered in dust, clothes torn, a small crystal in his hand. The princess stepped forward, her face unreadable. He held out the crystal, "For you." She took it gently and whispered, "You came back." He smiled. "I said I would." The nobles murmured, surprised. Even the queen blinked in quiet thought, and somewhere in the silence, respect for the human finally began to grow. The crystal sat on the queen's golden table, glowing softly. The air in the royal court was still. No one dared to speak first. Ethan stood straight, bruised and tired, but calm. The princess stood beside him with her hands folded, her eyes locked on her mother, the High Queen of Thalari. After a long pause, the queen spoke. "You completed the trial. No weapons, no help. And you returned with the crystal." Ethan nodded once. "Yes, Your Majesty." She leaned forward. "You passed the test of survival. But that alone does not make you worthy of royal blood." The court gasped. Some expected her to accept the result. Others knew it wasn't that simple. The queen looked at her daughter. "You are a princess. Your path is not only yours, it shapes the future of 2 empires. Say this human saved you in the past. That's noble. But a life of peace is built on more than memories." The princess replied softly, "This is not only about the past, it's about who he is now." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Then let us see who he truly is." She raised her hand, and the court's large doors opened. A new group entered. Dressed in armor, with heavy steps, they were the delegation from Lord Selvac's world, the noble suitor Ethan had replaced. He walked in with pride, holding his chin high, his sharp eyes burning with anger. "Your Majesty," he said to the queen, "this alliance was promised to me. The humans stole it with tricks and emotion. He is not of our kind. He cannot share our blood, wear our crown, or stand beside our people." The queen nodded slowly. "You will be allowed to speak freely." Selvac pointed at Ethan. "I challenge him." The room fell silent. Ethan frowned. "Challenge me to what?" "A battle," Selvac said coldly. "Not with weapons, but with mind and voice. One of truth, logic, and honor." Before the high court, the queen explained, "This is a rare challenge. No blood will be spilled. Only words will be used. Both sides will defend their right. The court will decide whose truth is stronger." Ethan looked at the princess, who gave him a small nod. "I accept," Ethan said. That night the royal court prepared the chamber of truth. 2 platforms stood facing each other. Between them sat the circle of judges elders from many worlds, each known for wisdom. Ethan stood on one platform. Lord Selvac stood on the other. The princess sat behind Ethan, silent and calm. The first elder spoke. "We begin." Lord Selvac started with fire. "This human does not know our ways. He was not born among stars, but on a backwater planet. Has no titles, no bloodline, no deep knowledge of Thaleri history. How can such a one be trusted with a princess? Ethan stayed quiet until it was his turn. "You're right," he said simply. "I wasn't born among stars. I don't come from power. I'm just someone who tries to help when others don't." Selvik laughed. "Help you helped once, long ago by chance. That does not make you a prince." "Maybe not," Ethan said. "But I didn't help for reward. I helped because someone needed saving, and that's the kind of person I'll always be." The judges listened carefully. Selvik raised his voice. "Speaks like a hero, but heroes fade. What about loyalty? What about politics? What about duty to the empire?" Ethan answered, "Loyalty is not shown in words. It's shown in what you do when no one is watching. I stayed on that moon not for power but because I made a promise. I'll keep that promise every day if I must." For the next hour, both sides spoke. Ethan never raised his voice. He spoke plainly, truthfully. He didn't try to act royal or important, just told the court who he was, and slowly, that truth began to reach hearts. The last question came from an old judge with glowing eyes. "If we reject you, human, what will you do?" Ethan didn't pause. "I'll return to Earth. I won't beg. But I will always be thankful I met her." He looked at the princess. "Because knowing someone like her, even for a short time..." "Shh. Me." The court grew silent. The judges whispered among themselves. The queen remained still, her face unreadable. Then the lead elder stood. "We have decided." He turned to the queen. "This human holds no noble title, no power, no rank. But he has honor, heart, and truth. That is more than many who wear crowns. We see no reason to stop the princess's choice." The queen nodded. "Then it is done." Some nobles cheered. Others stayed silent in shock. But no one spoke against the decision. Ethan turned to the princess. She walked up to him and gently touched his hand. For a moment the room disappeared. There were no more trials, no more doubts. Just two people standing in quiet understanding. After the court's decision, the palace buzzed with whispers and secrets. Some nobles smiled politely, others scowled in silence. The alliance was no longer just about politics. It was about something new, something unexpected. The princess and Ethan spent long hours talking quietly in the palace gardens. She showed him her world, the delicate plants that glowed under moonlight, the silent streams that ran like silver ribbons, and the ancient statues of heroes long gone. Ethan listened, fascinated by the beauty in the stories. He asked questions, not just about the palace, but about the people, their hopes and fears. One evening, as stars sparkled above, the princess looked at him and said, "You know, you don't have to pretend to be someone else here. Just be yourself, Ethan." Smiled, a little surprised. "That's easier said than done, but it's what matters most," she said softly. Yet not everyone was happy. Lord Selvik's anger had not faded. He met with a group of discontent nobles planning to challenge. The princess's choice again? They whispered about rebellion, about breaking the alliance. But the princess was ready. She called a meeting of her trusted council, including Ethan. "This alliance is not just for peace," she said firmly. "It's for trust. If we start with lies or fear, we will lose everything." Ethan nodded. "People fear what they don't understand, but they respect courage." The princess smiled. "Then we must show them courage." To prove their unity, the princess invited the nobles to watch Ethan train with the royal guards. Ethan was not a warrior, but he was determined to learn. The soldiers taught him the ways of their ancient martial arts movements of balance, strength, and calm. Ethan struggled at first. His body was different from theirs, his style unfamiliar, but his determination shone through. Each day he grew stronger. The nobles watched quietly. Some sneered, others whispered in surprise. Slowly, respect began to grow. One day an emergency came. A sudden attack from a group of rebels on the palace outskirts tested their readiness. The palace alarms rang loud. Ethan was ready. He joined the guards, standing beside the princess. As the rebels approached, Ethan's calm helped steady the soldiers. He led a small team to defend a critical gate. The rebels were fierce but disorganized. Ethan used what he had learned, the art of patience, the power of surprise. His team held the line. The princess watched from above, her heart pounding. When the rebels retreated, the palace erupted in cheers. After the battle, the queen called a special meeting. She looked at Ethan and the princess. "You have proven more than words," she said. "This alliance is stronger because of you." Ethan and the princess exchanged a look. Something had changed. Their bond was no longer just about duty or memory. It was about trust and respect. As days passed, they planned the wedding. The palace prepared for a celebration unlike any before. Humans and Theleri, nobles and soldiers, all came together. On the wedding day, the princess wore a dress woven with threads that shimmered like stars. Ethan stood beside her, not as an envoy, but as her partner. The ceremony was simple but powerful. They exchanged vows of loyalty, courage, and truth. The crowd cheered, not out of obligation, but from belief in what these two had shown. Afterward, the princess spoke to the crowd. "This marriage is not the end of a journey, but the start. Together, we will build a future where courage and kindness are stronger than fear." Ethan smiled. "I promise to stand by her, no matter what comes." The crowd roared. The alien princess who once rejected marriage had found something far greater: trust in a human, and hope for a new galaxy. The palace was alive with celebration. Stars outside seemed to shine brighter, as if the whole galaxy was watching this moment. The princess, now married to Ethan, walked through the grand halls with a calm smile. The people greeted them with cheers and gifts. Some still whispered doubts, but most were filled with hope. The wedding had changed much more than the palace. It had changed the Theleri people. They saw that a human, once seen as weak and strange, could stand beside their princess with honor. The old walls of pride and fear began to crack. Ethan was learning every day. He studied the history of the empire, its customs and languages. He walked the palace gardens with the princess, planning how to unite their worlds. One morning, as dawn painted the sky with soft pink, the princess and Ethan sat on a balcony overlooking the city. "Do you ever miss your home?" she asked quietly. Ethan looked at the distant stars. "Sometimes, but this feels like home now, with you." She smiled. "I never thought I'd say this, but you've made my world bigger." They spoke of dreams, a peace not just between their empires, but for all species. They talked about children, future leaders who would grow up knowing courage and kindness. But peace was fragile. A new threat loomed on the edges of the galaxy. Rumors spread of a warship, ancient and powerful, reawakening after centuries. Many feared it could destroy everything. The Theleri Council called an emergency meeting. Ethan and the princess were there, their hands linked. "This warship," the queen said, "could break our new alliance before it even begins." Ethan spoke calmly. "We can't fight it with old wars and old hatred. We need a new way." The princess nodded. "We must show the galaxy that unity is stronger than fear." They proposed a mission: a small fleet led by both humans and Theleri. Their goal: find the warship and understand it before it becomes a danger. The council agreed, though some were doubtful. Ethan and the princess prepared for the journey. Their bond was no longer just a symbol, it was the heart of their strength. As their ship left the palace, many watched with hope and prayer. The stars stretched before them like a path of light, dazed into space. The crew found the warship, a massive relic drifting near a forgotten star. Its hull was cracked, but its power core still glowed with life. The princess and Ethan led the team inside. The ship was silent, filled with shadows and echoes. Deep in the control room, they discovered an old message, a warning from a lost civilization. "This ship was made for destruction," Ethan read, "but it was never used. It holds power that can save or destroy." The princess looked at him. "Then we must choose wisely." They decided to repair the ship not as a weapon, but as a guardian. They worked together, humans and Thaleri. Using knowledge from both worlds, weeks passed. The ship once feared began to change, became a symbol of hope, a protector of peace. When they returned to the Empire, the fleet was greeted as heroes. The warship was no longer a threat but a promise. The princess stood beside Ethan, proud and strong. "This is what happens when we choose trust," she said. "When we look beyond fear." Ethan smiled. "And when we stand together." Right. The galaxy watched, learning a new story, one where humans and aliens could build a future. Not with war, but with courage, kindness, and silence that speaks louder than words.